use remote jobs to actually give employment for people abroad by paying them a lower salary. A new fashion that a lot of Spanish companies are actually doing. What is happening with the national health care system? Yes, it is free, but this is the shocking truth about it that the same Ministry of Health actually published. And last but not least, the reduced week hours of work. It was 40 hours a week, supposed to be 37 and a half right now. What happened with this law? And will we actually see this weekly hour reduction anytime soon? Stay tuned here on the channel Spain Unlocked to discover Spain's latest news update. Let's begin. First of all, national health system is absolutely desperate in Spain. According to the recent statistics, which was actually published by the National Health System themselves, asking for help and immediate action from the government's side. Surprise, surprise, I do feel like nothing will change, at least for now, short term, because it's been like this for years and decades, and it's only been getting worse. Officially, by the numbers that the National Health System has given to all the residents in Spain, we have the average wait for a specialist to be seen by a specialist, a doctor, endocrinologist, neurologist, etc. 165 days to be attended by this specialist on average, which means it's more than 5 months of wait in the national health care. And then people are getting surprised, why do we get a private health insurance to actually be treated fast and efficient, even though we need to pay for it? This is the main reason why. And the second reason would be 846,000 patients are waiting for some kind of operation in Spain right now. Obviously, urgent operations, urgent matters are treated urgently, but if it's not life-threatening, even though it is slightly urgent, you will be on a wait list. There are people who have been waiting for a whole year to get a knee surgery, hip replacement, different types of traumatology surgeries. And as for waiting such a long time, people have permanent damage and permanent health issues. A lot of the times they're not even able to walk correctly back again. All of this because of such a long wait in the social security, in the national health care, which obviously doesn't happen in a private one. You schedule it in no time. You go to the specialist, exactly the one that you want, and you don't need to go to a general doctor, a general practitioner, right? To a family doctor. So it's way more efficient. It's way faster. And National Healthcare knows it. They're asking more measures. They're asking more machinery. They're asking to expand the existing hospitals and emergency departments, more healthcare specialists, more doctors and nurses. But the population is growing, but the amount of doctors is decreasing. Why? Because a lot of them are retiring right now or have retired already. And the new ones not always want to work in Spain. They prefer to go abroad because they know the work conditions will be slightly better and the salary also will be higher than the one they're getting paid in Spain. So they're choosing other countries instead. Don't get us wrong. Obviously, we are lucky, and that's what a lot of people say. You're lucky you even have a social security. You're lucky you even have a public health insurance. Yes, we are, without a doubt, but whenever you need to be treated, you don't know what's happening with you, you need to go to the specialist, but you wait half a year to only get to the consultation. Tell me, how is this any good? When you get the actual treatment, though, at the specialist, it is good, and the urgent treatments and serious treatments are good. But until you get there, it's going to be really, really stressful and not good at all, which I hope will change in the future, but something tells us that it's going to be exactly the same as it is right now. And this is also the reason why more and more people are getting private health insurance here in Spain, with or without co-payment, but something to be able to go to the doctor faster and more efficient. Let's continue with news number 2, and this is about the companies who are taking advantage of workers who are remote workers And by this, they're actually getting workers from outside Spain without them actually being here and paying them way less salary than what they should be paying here to a person who would technically be working in Spain, even though it's a remote job. This is not new. This is happening in a lot of huge corporations, a lot of big companies, data companies, those who, for example, there is different types of profiles in US that you won't see these people working in US actually. These people are in India and they receive a minimal size salary comparing to what they would be receiving if they would be working in US. And like this, a lot of companies do actually save up huge loads of money. And in Spain, some companies, with the remote job being more frequent now and more accessible after pandemics especially, did take this advantage and are starting to use it, leaving the rest of the people who are here or who are good specialists here too behind because they prefer to pay way lower salary. We're talking like 10 times even more less of a salary than what people here in Spain are getting. Obviously, the Ministry of Work will be conducting inspections, and there's been an official document which is called BOE, Boletín Oficial del Estado, state's official bullet points, where they actually tell all the latest changes and everything that's going to be happening, the plans. It's according to different ministries and different laws. And this one is for the next 2 years. There's going to be like a work police, they call it, where they'll be conducting a lot of inspections in terms of work positions. They will be checking the companies. They will be checking if companies actually use this remote job not to get people from here and sign them a contract and pay them a valid salary, but instead going abroad and seeking for cheap labor force, which technically wouldn't be illegal unless some things are seriously wrong and the vast majority of people are actually there and not here in Spain. Also, there's people who have illegal job contracts, or better to say, have a half shift contract, but are whole 8 hours a day working and are getting some of the money that they are receiving as salary inside of an envelope in cash instead of being paid actually through the bank, which makes it, they call it a black money here, which is illegal. People who are working without a contract and without a social security, without being registered anywhere at all, also will be checked, obviously. And nowadays in Spain, to be exact, it could have been a decade ago, 2-3 decades ago especially, that's when it was very common that smaller business owners were actually getting people to work. They were paying them salaries, but they were not giving them contracts or paying social security. So that person technically was not working government-wise, with government eyes, right? But the person was working, he was getting his salary, but it wasn't something that difficult to be done. Nowadays, there's way more control. Everything is digitalized. People have to register their presence in the work position, not only by signing by hand, but there is different types of machines who register by fingerprints, Face ID, digital codes, or apps on the phone where you need to register. So it's more and more difficult, and people are afraid. So nowadays, contracts are present everywhere. Without any kind of legal paperwork, people will not be finding a job here in Spain. So everything has changed quite a lot. And obviously they will also be checking the digital nomads. It is a very new profile, relatively new, and they'll be checking digital nomads, those who are registered here in Spain, not those who are coming from abroad and are getting paid from abroad companies but living here, but those who are registered here and do not pay, for example, the taxes, or something shady is happening. Because as you all know, whenever you're applying for a digital nomad visa, a lot of the times, depending on your situation, you have to register as self-employed. In Spain, you have to pay your taxes here and your monthly social security fee, unemployment fee, etc., like a monthly quote to the social security. So there's some issues with that as well. And obviously all self-employed, as always, will be checked, which is a shame, because without us, the self-employed, People would not have where to go apply for the job. There would be no businesses, and for some reason, self-employed are the ones who are being the most punished ones in Spain for a really, really long time, which I do not think personally is fair, because without the entrepreneurs, without the people who are starting their business and employing others, where would people work? For some reason, I think governments forget that, as per se, and are trying their best to take as much as they can from those who are self-employed. There's always been inspections at different companies and self-employed. This is not something new, but now it's going to be more and more. With the more digitalized we have all the documents, everything, it is easier to track on, and it is easier to see if something's wrong. It is easier to detect it. And obviously for inspectors, it is easier to catch those who are doing things in a wrong or illegal way. So we will see, but obviously each and every time it is making things better for the employed ones or for the self-employed ones, for people who work in general. If it is better, if it is to improve the work conditions, that's perfectly fine by us, but only if it's used in a correct way, not just to gather as much taxes as you can, because ironically, the Spanish tax agency, the public entity, has record amount of taxes this past year. You cannot even imagine how much money they take from taxpayers. Not sure if it's in any country like this, but here in Spain, this year it's been a record amount of money that they have gathered. And then the next thing we see is that the minister of the tax agency has been caught for fraud. Where is all our money going? A lot of people are asking the same thing here in Spain. So inspections are good, but only if these are for a good cause and they serve to make the life of people who live here better, not to end up in the pockets of some who work in these agencies. Let's continue with the last news, and it is about the reduction of working hours in Spain. As some of you might know, there's been a very, very loud news that Spain will be reducing weekly maximum allowed work hours. Before it was 40 hours a week, so basically it's 5 days, 8 hours a day. This is like a standard work day for a lot of people here in Spain. And you could have a reduced hours, reduced shifts, for example, 20 hours a week, 30 hours a week, or 40 hours a week, which is a complete one. More hours have to be specifically approved, and it is not common to have unless your work and your contract allows you to get extra shifts. Usually it's not a common thing whatsoever unless you're working in healthcare, which is when it typically also is. So we were supposed to pass from 40 hours a week towards 37 and a half only, which is 2.5 hours less. Basically, it's like 30 minutes less a day. It's not a lot, but a lot of people thought it was good. Who didn't think it was good were mostly people working in the tourism industry, companies in industries that are related to tourism or related to hotel industry, traveling, food, beverages, etc., that have a very tight schedule as per se. It's not office working hours, so they could not adjust that easily. They would need to get extra hours or extra workers, extra shifts, and it's more money that has to be spent and paid to the workers. So it's less profit for the company, and it's not sustainable for smaller businesses either. And surprise, surprise, this past Wednesday, when this law went into Congress for approval, what happened is that the vast majority, almost all of them, denied this proposal. Not sure why, because there are technically studies that show that with less hours, people are more productive because people are happier. They're working slightly less hours. They get to see their family more, their kids. They get to have some leisure time. So people overall are happier and more productive at their job. They can do exactly the same thing in this lower amount of hours. But it's the same as with Ocupas law, the ones who are getting illegally in your property and you cannot take them out of there. It's the same thing. There's been so many useful laws that have been just unanimously voted out and they never ever prospered and they were never approved. And here is exactly the same thing. It's a good thing for all the workers, but for some reason it's not approved. And the only thing that will be approved, though, that doesn't technically need a legal approval, it's just a extra measure that will be taken in terms of jobs, is this control of assistance that we've spoken in the previous news. When you have to register yourself at the job, when you go inside and when you finish your work. Before, a lot of companies, smaller companies who did not invest in software as much, who do not need to invest, at least they thought they would not need to. Usually it was like a paper that you printed out, you put your name, last name, the date, when you get in, when you clock out, you've signed it, and that's it. Nowadays, probably it's not going to be possible any longer, quite soon, because everything has to be digitalized. It is way easier to actually fake a paper, even though it is signed, than to actually fake a whole system. So people will need to use apps. More and more businesses will have to buy some software. Bigger companies obviously have these machines where you clock in and clock out. So it's going to be all digitalized in order to avoid hours who have not been registered by the company. If people work extra hours during their shift, all of it has to be properly registered, especially in tourism sector. It is a very common thing in restaurants. They ask you to stay 1-2 hours more, 3 hours more if there's some big tables. And at the end, they don't pay you for these hours extra. So now they will have to, because there's going to be this type of system. And companies who will not be using it, obviously at the end, these might get an inspection, might get fines and be severely punished. So this would be the only probably good thing that will be happening soon here in Spain. It's a shame that 37.5 hours shift a week did not prosper. Maybe in the nearest future, who knows. Up until now, the latest Spain news update. We hope you enjoyed today's update. We hope you got some useful and interesting information for you. Don't forget, you can always contact us with the details down below. We will be glad to help you with your relocation to the sunny Spain. And we'll see you next week with brand new video on Tuesday. Goodbye.